up. I'm going to go through this stuff rather quickly. Hopefully we're going to have it recorded so that you'll be able to refer to it. We'll make it available in some way, either through Dropbox or another method for you right now. But I would like to go over the entire line of primate caging so that when you go into a customer, you'll understand what you're hearing from them, and they will be able to you'll be able to talk to them with some knowledge. And if you know anything, that I found that when you can talk primate people's language, you have a real connection. Because if you're just out there selling a cage and don't understand what their needs are or the primate needs, they're your most sophisticated animal that is in research. So people get very attached to these animals because I guess the intelligence of them. So when you understand what they need, the primates need, the researcher needs, you can really forge a bond with this person and probably get yourself spec'd in or get a sale. Okay. One of the things I always talk about is primate well-being. So I don't like to talk about primate caging. I like to talk about primate well-being and how do you achieve primate well-being with our cages. And basically it turns out to this. Not only are they mandated to have socialization, but we believe that their socialization should be in the vertical also. That's rarer today than horizontal socialization. I see somebody's, you still in my control there, Mike?
I didn't steal it.
Okay, somebody did.
It's yours to take back.
I got it. Okay, so I talk about volume of space, giving the primates volume of space. The guide talks about square footage. You have to give them that, but we're talking about giving them the vertical space as well. And when you do, you allow for more of their typical locomotive behavior, and that can increase their well-being, which can result in better test sensitivity, and that can result in better research. Okay, improving locomotive behavior with your facility's mobile caging today may not be totally possible because of the way the caging was designed. Hence, your customers ready to buy new caging that will increase their primates' well-being. And there's reasons for doing that beyond the well-being, the psychological well-being of the primate. They may have clients that would like to see these primates roaming in larger space. We have what we call the increased globalization of drug companies, and that means that we're doing business overseas. Overseas customers are coming over here for primate studies, and they may require them to be part of the ETS 123 standard, which grants a huge volume of space to primates. And we have ways of achieving that, and I'll go over that in this presentation too. Anytime the company can be perceived to, I'm going to mute you guys, okay, so everybody's muted at this point. Whenever you can increase your PR about what you do or don't do is always a good thing, and having large caging for your primates is certainly one way to keep some of the animal rights activism off of your back. You could be soliciting work from these multinational companies, and if they're from Europe, they expect to see a larger volume of space for their primates. It's almost 2 or 3 times what we dedicate to ours. I'm going to have a graphic to show you that. Okay, some of the factors that influence primate well-being are interactions with personnel, the variety of diet, room temperature, humidity, and light levels. And things that we can directly control are the climbing, brachiating, foraging, running, and socialization of the primates through delivering properly designed primate well-being cages. Now here's some of the differences between ETS, because this ETS will creep in not only with primates, you'll hear it about rabbits, cats, dogs. Okay, that is the European standard, and we're now under the ILAR Guide 8th edition. This is the footprint of what the ILAR Guide recommends on the left. This is the footprint that ETS recommends, so it's quite a bit different. Now, ETS 123 will allow you to put 2 primates in that space where we can only put 1. So just by their design of regulation, they're already doing pair housing or socialization, which is the minimum that your customer is mandated to do. And look at the cage height difference here. Ours is 32 inches. This is supposed to represent a group 4 rhesus macaque. And if he were standing, he's proportionally drawn into that cage. That's how big the males can get. So if you see him in a U.S. cage with 32-inch height, and then you see him in the EU cage with 79 inches of height, although there's 2 of them, they have a lot more volume of space to roam in than our guys. Ours are pretty confined if you look at it. Okay, now there's different types of primate caging. The whole room type, the fixed in place enclosures, and mobile caging. And I'm going to show you some examples of each. Now this is a whole room type of enclosure, and that's what it really means. They've dedicated a whole room. It could be indoor or outdoor for a group of primates to live in. Now there are some reasons for doing this. We don't generally get involved in this. This stuff that is generally found in these are not generated by this company. As you can see, they could almost outfit this place like with real some thought, some stuff from Home Depot and the kids' play store. So we don't get involved in this at all, but this does exist. Now there are advantages and disadvantages of each type of enclosure, and as soon as I expose you to all the types of enclosures, we're going to go over that. These are fixed in place enclosures, and these are considered by some the next best thing to a whole room. And I'm going to go over the advantages and disadvantages of this. These are built in, and they are generally bolted to the floor and walls and ceilings, so they're permanent for the most part. Then you have fixed in place, which I called knockdown. Okay, so this type of freestanding enclosure doesn't need to be attached to the walls or ceiling, and it offers certain advantages. It gives you some of the room and visual appeal that the in-place enclosures can give to the client, but yet it is not fixed to the wall, and that allows you to clean behind it, which is really one of the detriments of fixed in-place enclosures. And I'm going to go over the requirements of sanitization and why these things are, a fixed in-place enclosure like the previous slide is not always a good deal for a client or their primates. Then you have the mobile 1/1 type caging, or possibly quad caging, 2/2, where you can link them together to form one large type of containment area. Okay, the whole room is kind of easy to outfit. Like I said, your client may be able to do that themselves with some help from the maintenance people. It can house a lot of primates. They get to roam the whole room, and they can form several types of groups. And it has great visual appeal. When somebody walks in and sees that, it's very zoo-like, and wow, this is so nice. It's free-flowing. There's no bars, but it may be more appropriate for off-study housing, because getting an animal on study in that scenario is a little more difficult. It takes more training of the primates. It's probably a slower process for your personnel, and as you're going to see, this has a problem with cleaning and disinfecting. Okay, we're required by the guide to do daily flushing and disinfection at least every 2 weeks. Okay, there's sanitization, which is the use of chemicals with some possible agitation. There's disinfection, which has to have at least hot water of 143 to 180 degrees. and there's sterilization. Now, we're not required to sterilize primate cages, but we are required to do sanitization and disinfection. And to do that, when you have a whole room or even an in-place enclosure, you can't do that with the primates in there. So every 2 weeks, you got to move them or put them somewhere so that you can sanitize properly according to the guide. So as you can see, once you designate that room as a primate room and start install this equipment, you lose room flexibility, and you can have problems with sanitization, as I just spoke about, restraint and capture. You know, you can't just go in and squeeze a monkey. You have to get him into a cage. Separation, if you have a monkey that needs to be separated for husbandry or isolating for sickness or contraception, you have no place to do it. You have to remove him completely from the group. And then group introduction. Unless you have a very well thought out system, you can't just dump the primate into the room and just expect it to survive or get along. It has to be introduced to the group. Okay, the fixed in place enclosures, the ones that look like they were bolted into both sides of the room, they have some advantages. And one of the advantages over like mobile caging is that they use full height of the room, just like the whole room enclosures. And because they're generally large and they don't generally have a middle floor like in a 1/1 type cage, they're easier to outfit with various apparatus. And again, you can allow several groups to form in these cages if you dedicate one side of the room to a group per group. And they're somewhat easier to sanitize. There are methods for restraint and capture that have been devised. Usually one section at least has a squeeze back. So you do have some advantages over the whole room when it comes to husbandry, isolation, and group introduction. Now, some of their disadvantages: decreased room flexibility. Once they're bolted in, that room is a primate room, as is the whole room enclosure. And you still do have difficulty with these following things. And I've got a chart here in a couple of slides that's going to rank order all these things so that you get a great relative way of comparing each type of enclosure with each of these type of, let's say, bullet points here. Okay, mobile enclosures. Well, obviously, you can move them in and out of a room, so you can convert that room back to any use that you like. You can move them from building to building or company to company or a satellite facility, so you have an increased resource flexibility. And they're easier to do all these things because of the equipment built into them by their very nature. Now, the disadvantages: they can be heavy to move. They're big. They don't use the full height of the room most often because they have to go out the door and into a cage washer. And their appearance, because there's so much more on these things like squeeze backs, enrichment panels, owl viewers, verandas, they don't appear as zoo-like, because they're really set up to balance the needs of the primates for room and space and socialization with the researchers' need to perform research. And that's what gives them their complex appearance. Now, busy slide, but just take it little by little. An attribute of 1, a ranking of 1 on an attribute is the best or easiest, and 3 is the least or the hardest. So as we go down a column here, and I took all the attributes that we were talking about, you know, visual appeal, room flexibility, sanitization, restraint and capture, husbandry, isolation, group introduction. These are all the things that have to be done almost daily with primates on study. So if you look at the whole room, that's dedicating the whole room, you can see where its strengths are. Okay, but when you get down to sanitization, restraint, husbandry, and isolation, I gave them 3s because they're the hardest in those things, and therefore I think they're not well suited to study. Now flip right over to fixed in place. We'll take it step by step. As you can see, I rated those ones in the middle a little higher than the whole room, the restraint and capture sanitization for the fixed in place enclosures. And there's some other ones where they excel, like full height of the room and ability to outfit with apparatus. But here's what people do not realize, and I think I just convinced the customer to go from the fixed in place, that's what they called me about, to a mobile design, when I was able to demonstrate to them that it has advantages almost in every aspect except a few. And there are ways of getting around those even. So when I say ability to outfit with apparatus, I'm saying if the mobile caging, you can design certain things in, but a lot of times it's hanging it on, taking it off, hanging it on, and that degrades its ability to be as flexible as the other two types of caging. Now, visual appeal we talked about because it's so loaded up and it's a 1/1 cage generally. You have double the squeeze backs, double the feeders, double this, double that. So it looks very complex and un-zoo-like. But on all the other ways that a researcher may be looking at this caging, room flexibility, sanitization, restraint and capture, it ranks, I think, the best. So this is a good chart to share with your clients about the relative aspects of each type of caging. Now we're going to start getting in a little bit of specifics about caging. I'm not going to talk a lot about in-room or whole room or in-place enclosures in this briefing, because the majority of what we sell, 99%, is mobile caging, 1/1s or 2/2s. Now, there's some features that make mobile caging as flexible as it is, and I want to go over those things with you. All right, number one, horizontal socialization, staged horizontal socialization. Okay, what you're looking at here is a grooming bar panel pulled forward. The front door, this is a full front opening door all the way open, so you have complete access to the cage compartment for laying a sick or a knockdown primate back in, or post-surgical, or even retrieving them. And you have your perch, pretty standard item. But this area back here occurs on each cage, on both sides of the cage, on a 1/1, and that's the finger touch panel. With the proper manipulation of the sliding panels, that's your first stage of stage introduction. There's one on the other cage, so they're separated by a neutral area, so there's no biting. They can't bite each other's fingers off like they could right through this grooming bar. So that's your first stage of stage introduction. Sight, smell, and that's about it. Now, this slide takes a little study, but it shows you a 1/1 cage that possesses, this is one part of a 1/1, this would be the one next to it, and in each one they have 2 panels here and 2 panels here. The next one over, 2 panels here, 2 panels here. Next one over, 2. And what you can do then is manipulate the panels that we give you, either solid, clear Lexan, the grooming bar panel, and you can create 5 different stages of socialization, and I'm going to go over them. Okay. 1, this is no socialization. These panels are pulled forward. They're solid panels, and if you wanted to cut off all finger touching or anything through there, just keep one of them in the rear position, and you have no contact between compartments of cages. 2, the first stage then, or the next stage, would be finger touch. Pull them all forward and let them see through and touch. I mean, they can't touch, but we say finger touch. They can stick their fingers through there. They cannot touch another animal. It's too far apart, but they can smell, and they can spit, and they can see. Okay, the next stage would be just going to a clear Lexan panel and letting them view each other, but still have a hiding area to go to retreat if there were any aggression exhibited by his neighbor. And that hiding space is very important. The grooming bars, you have to be pretty confident now that they're ready to touch, because again, there can be some biting, scratching, and stuff to occur. So this is the last stage that you would have before you go to full socialization, which is step 5. And these again are all real important to combine compartments in 1/1s to give it that space that they're going to need. Now, vertical space. You got these 1/1s and you got one cage over top of the other. How are we going to get them to go vertical? Okay, well, there's a couple of concepts that we developed, and this one now has been thoroughly copied, and it was our sliding floor. Years ago, the way to accomplish vertical socialization was to remove the whole floor and ceiling and pan between compartments. And that worked, but what you did is you removed the whole floor. You had to store it. You probably dropped it on your foot a few times, and they're quite heavy. A 6 square foot panel, it's got some weight to it. So you drop it on your foot, you probably got a workman's comp claim. So taking and allowing the floor to telescope under the front or the rear portion, we use either method sometimes depending, then eliminates that need to remove anything. You don't have to remove on a dry system, though, you do remove half of a pan, but that's all you remove. Everything's activated from outside the cage using a sliding bar, and it just telescope. It's like a drawer, so it works real well. It's very quick, and now you can open up the cage vertically from top to bottom while still leaving some area left in the rear for perching, sitting, or whatever. Okay, this worked very well until a concept came in where USDA about 2 or 3 years ago started saying, well, if you're in vertical socialization mode, you better have 6 square feet or 4 square feet for each primate that's in that cage. That presented a problem, and Lenderking has developed a solution for it. But I wanted to show you how just using horizontal socialization and vertical socialization can create different scenarios for your primates on a daily or weekly basis. So these are 1/1 cages. Okay, that's what these are representing, and they're linked together. And now by having done my stage introduction to the neighbor, and I have it, the ability now to open up all the compartments. I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be any scratching, biting, or aggressive behavior. I now open up all my compartments, and I can create various scenarios for them to explore. So today it might be this, tomorrow it might be this. And what's good to note here is that this compartment can have a primate in. Now this could be a female that's you're practicing, you need to have under contraception. It could be a sick primate. It could be a primate that you've just introduced to the group, or one that you had removed from the group and you want to reintroduce to the group, so that that primate can be part of the group either through some grooming bars or a Lexan panel, but still be isolated yet part of the group. So the ability to open all these, top, bottom, and everything, and let everybody roam is great, but you could also, isolate a primate for whatever reason